Okay, we're good there. We got a little bit of housekeeping to do, clean up from the last session. First of all, I forgot to mention this stuff, polybitume. It's a special caulking that's used for blueskin. So anytime you're on blueskin and you want it to stick and you want it to stay, you get the yellow container. Okay? If you want information about that, one of the guys back in the Milwaukee booth actually distributes this, and you can chat with him about it. So that's one thing. Second thing is some discussion has come up about the bolt holes through the floor. Okay, as we've had the bolt holes come up. Technically speaking, it's been raised, and then we've just checked on the code on this, that there is a provision that says we should not put any holes in pressure-treated wood. And therefore, we don't want bolt holes coming up through there, and then we don't want holes for electrical wires. Now, the other kind of rule of pressure-treated wood is you always use in-cut treatment anytime you do cut through it, like particularly building a deck or something like that. So if you do have holes, you should put some in-cut treatment in there. But the better practice, rather than doing the bolt holes up through the bottom as we're doing, is a little metal bracket screwed into the concrete foundation that provides a block on the inside for lateral pressures. And that way it's no holes in the pressure-treated wood, and I still have the resistance of movement from coming inward. Okay, so that would actually be a better detail. Interesting that detail was not dealt with in the permanent wood foundation book, and in fact is almost unclear in the code. That's the problem with codes. But we finally ran down, talked with code people. There's code people in the back room here that we deal with code, but we got on the telephone to other code people and really defined that it's no holes in pressure-treated wood, and therefore the bolt hole, we should shift that over to a bracket ideally. If you do have holes, squirt them with in-cut treatment. Okay, and we didn't talk about in-cut treatment. Anytime you cut pressure-treated wood, you do have to put in-cut treatment in. And the in-cut treatment prevents opening up the wood to being exposed to that thing. And that's a real pain. You got to do it all the way along in your construction process. One little detail on that, just to make life easier for you, if you do build with pressure-treated wood and you 2x6, 2x8s, anything, put the cut end on the top, up, so that anything that's down where there might be moisture has the full treatment from the factory. And then your cut end's never down on the bottom, it's on the top, and it's probably free of water. Okay, so it has a better chance of surviving. Another little detail that I want to show you as we're getting into this next step is this piece of Tyvek here. And you can see the Tyvek is placed on here before we put the floor on. So you can see in all of the models, there is a piece of Tyvek that comes up around there and goes up, which just reminds me there's a mistake that we needed to point out to you. This wall over here has a double bottom plate instead of a double top plate. That was a mistake over at Home Hardware. The guy built the model backwards and they had to put it on last night. And so that should not have a double plate on the bottom. It should be up on the top. Okay, so we'll just live with that. That ever happened to you on your website, on your construction sites? So anyway, this Tyvek actually comes, and you can see it in all the models right next to you. It droops down on the inside. We're going to catch that in this next challenge with putting insulation in. It wraps around the whole rim joist area and then goes back to go up and catch the vapor barrier on the wall above. So it gives us air barrier continuity all the way around. So now the guys are going to come up here and show you, Keith, you're going to come up and fold this thing up for them. Show you a little detail on folding that is designed to shed water. It's a simple little thing, but as you see, this is sticking out in the corner here. So instead, if you were to fold it this way, you might be catching water. Okay, so he's going to fold that up inside, come over the top, and again, the shingle. Okay, this is just a tiny little difference. We get into the same thing folding sheet metal for end dams on windows. So that comes across, sealed there, and of course, any joints in this as you come up should be eventually sealed. We'll do this all later because we don't need it until after lunch. But any joints like here should be sealed with a red contractor tape as well. Okay, so the Tyvek is continuous all the way along. So as we're working through it. You want to spin us around and we'll get ready to go here. Now we have everybody ready. Sylvia says we're ready. If you haven't signed up for the afternoon and you want to participate and you want to get yourself a hard hat and a pair of gloves and a pair of glasses, sign up for the competitions. Insulating the foundation wall is what we're getting into here. And let me just take a look at my notes to make sure I'm talking about everything I wanted to talk about. Okay. We're going to insulate the foundation wall itself, which means putting insulation into these cavities. Okay, we have Roxol. You're going to be cutting it with bread knives and slicing through that. By the way, a bread knife works pretty well, but you know there are insulation knives. And the difference between a bread knife and an insulation knife is the last tooth on the blade. Okay, the insulation blade actually has a good cutting edge right out to the tip. And the bread knife has a fork on the end for picking up pieces of bread. Okay, but it works. Okay, it works a lot better than just using a utility knife or anything else. We're using Roxol, not fiberglass. It's easier on you. You should be wearing gloves when you're doing this. Roxol is a brittle material, and if you bend it too much, it breaks. Now, you're going to have to trim it down and fit it into place, but you can't slop it around like fiberglass. Okay, but it's easier on your lungs and easier on you as you're doing this. Now, you do have masks, so the people that are actually putting it in, wear the mask. We don't want you coughing all afternoon. There is one detail here that is going to be interesting and difficult for you, which is right back in this corner. If you take a look at it, there's a whole bunch of place that needs insulation. And you can't really just cut a piece and sneak it back there. You'll end up, if you put your hand back there, you'll find out there's a hidden space in the back. And so you need to take smaller strips of the insulation and tuck them in without compressing it and actually get that. And I warn you, our inspectors are worse than the municipal inspectors, so our judges are going to be peeking back there and see how you did it. Okay, so they're going to check that out. So you need to work fairly carefully here and understand that for the bolts coming up, with Roxol, what you do is you lift the whole thing up and then set it down on the bolt. Because the bolt will penetrate nicely the end of the Roxol, but if you try to shove it in, you're in trouble. Okay? So you're going to squeeze it up and drop it down on the bolt as you're coming through. So we want to put insulation. Now we've got an empty space up here on ours, but yours are all set up so you don't have an empty space up there. So you can insulate that whole wall area as we're coming along here. So we're going to insulate the foundation wall. You're going to take the poly and put a vapor barrier over it. So where's our vapor barrier go? The poly is going to come from here down. Okay? Now we want these two to join together. So you have two choices. You could either fold this down, put the poly over the top, or you put the poly here and fold this over it. Probably easiest to bring this down, even staple it down over your insulation, bring your poly all the way up to the header, and seal it with our wonderful caulking here. So our wonderful caulking will be like that. So that's sealed there, and then you put it in. When you're stapling poly as a vapor barrier, you don't want staple holes letting moisture through. So you staple where there's caulking. You know, that acoustical sealant that you're putting on there, that horrible black stuff. By the way, if you're going gray, it's great to use acoustical sealant. You don't have to dye your hair. Okay, it'll be black when you're done, and it'll stay black. It doesn't wash out. So you put that there, and your staples go right smack into the poly like that, okay? Right where the caulking is. And then we're going to come down to the bottom. Now here on the bottom, we're doing something a little different. Let me get over here to show you. If you want to bring the camera with me down here. It's a piece of plastic going under the wall, over the footing. We're going to be coming down with another piece of plastic here, and we want to not only caulk our plastic, the vapor barrier, to the bottom stud, but we want to caulk it to this piece. Now outside, remember, we made a big effort to not do that. Now we're going to seal them together so that anything from the atmosphere or from underneath can't get in that wall. Anything in the wall, for whatever stupid reason, comes out down here on the other side. So we leave an escape route, but we don't leave an entry route. Okay, so that vapor barrier on the inside is sealed both top and bottom as we're coming along. Now, then we're going to seal the bottom plate, floor under the poly. Understand that this overlap, this piece here, I'm not bringing it up because it is used to join to the poly that comes out over the whole floor, all over the drainage layer before you put down concrete or wooden floor or anything else. So that will eventually be sealed. And in fact, when you do that, depends on how much space you have to work with here. If in this case, we got a lot of space, we can come back next week or 2 weeks from now and do the floor, do the poly, do everything. We don't do the poly early because it'll get destroyed in construction, walking on it and everything else. And it's slippery. So that's why we have a limited amount of poly coming under the floor, but it's plenty enough to be able to make a good seal together with the rest before we lay down whatever we're putting down over the top. Okay? So then when required, sometimes you are going to be backfilling on the inside of the house for lateral support. So when required, that backfilling board would then go over the top of the vapor barrier and be ready to receive backfill on the inside, if that's your design. Now, all of these things, we have a lot of variables. So I'm saying you're going to have somebody that makes specs for your building. Check those specs. What is going on? I'm just sort of telling you what you can see in a spec, what might or might not be there. And then you need to follow it. If there's a spec about something holding it from lateral support on the inside, you got to follow that, or otherwise that wall can kick in. Now here, now that I got the bolts right there, if we're not using bolts, then you put a bracket down here that would hold the wall in place. So a metal bracket or something like that could be in place of the bolts coming up, if you wanted to do it that way. Okay, I think that's all we need. Yep, that's all you're going to be doing. So basically, you're insulating the foundation wall, and you're installing a vapor barrier, and you're sealing it well top and bottom. So that's not a lot of work for 20 minutes, except that we want you to insulate. You're not coming up here. You're down here in the wall, and you're just doing the small section here, different size sections. So you got to cut your insulation. Oh, by the way, we're using rock salt, and it's fairly easy to tuck into a cavity. If you're using fiberglass, I was talking with a gentleman during the break, and he had a condensation problem, and I was pointing out to him how it probably came from the fiberglass. When you push fiberglass into a wall, it tends to drag on the sides. And if you were to look inside the wall, often we see little triangular open spaces right back in these corners here, and almost coming halfway up the stud, which means the cold comes all the way halfway up the stud, which means the drywall gets cold, which means you get condensation and mold. So when you're using fiberglass, you really do have to push the bat all the way in so it hugs the back wall, and then pull the face back out so it hugs the front wall. So rock salt, we want to do a little bit the same thing, but it's not as touchy because it tends to keep its form. But as you're pushing it in, you need to make sure that it's all the way snug back and then nurse it back out. But be careful, rock salt is easy to tear apart. It's really great material, but it's much more delicate than fiberglass and working on it. So now as we're coming in, now you see that's the proper way to wear a mask under your chin, okay? And got you on camera. What do you want? So now we're cutting this. Let's not cut the rug, okay, guys? The hotel gets really upset when I have a whole bunch of people in here cutting and they cut a rug. You've got pieces of plywood or pieces of wood or one by something to put down under your cut as you're cutting. They get really mad when I take a hot iron and I put it on the stage and burn through the rug, you know, things like that. So we're cutting with the serrated knives. It's fairly easy to do. By the way, don't force your way all the way down. You sort of work your way back. A little bit of a saw cut makes it work nice. We got that on camera now? There we go. And it cuts through fairly easily, and you can get the size that you need. Now, he was just cutting off the top. Doing that, you could either do it with the knife itself or take a marker with you. You can mark this stuff. Now, you see how that pats in fairly easy? You want to make sure it's snug all the way back. The vapor barrier is not going to push it back. So you have to nurse that in and get it all hugged in. It stays pretty well square. It's going to be much more complicated to do that backside. I really invite you to, first of all, put your hand back there and discover the shape that you're supposed to fill with insulation. It's not simple, okay? And if you leave an empty space back there, I guarantee you condensation in the corner, okay? Condensation in the corner means the drywall gets wet, means that the mold sets in, and you say, why are the corners always moldy? Well, it's because sometimes that's a blind corner. The way the walls are put up, you don't even see where it needs to be insulated. Or in this one, it's an open corner, but it's not a simple entry to get in there. Okay, so let's get up into our stations. 2 by 2, come on, get up, find your equipment, and take a look at what you have to work with. Find your rock saw, find your knives, find your hard hats. Nobody's moving. Do we have anybody in this contest? Geez, we've got three wild cameras now. This one is what? You're with media. Okay. So what media is everybody on? This is CBC. TBC. TVC. Thunder Bay Television. Okay. Oh, yeah. Cool. Okay, you're finding your equipment because we don't want you wasting time when we get started, so make sure you find your knives, you find your caulking guns, the black crayons for sealing, your staple guns for putting things into place. Fairly easy. I would suggest you deal with that corner fairly early on because that corner is going to be your trouble shot. Unless you want to practice on the other ones for cutting. Yeah, actually, if you cut the other pieces, you'll have some scrap available for the corner. That's probably a good idea. Cut the other pieces first, take your scrap, and we'll work it back in the corner. We do not want to compress the insulation into the corner. Compressed insulation does not insulate. Think about it. Glass fiber. Glass is not an insulator. So you compress the glass fiber down to a pack, it's not going to give you an R value. You're still looking for a knife? Didn't we have enough? I thought we had an extra knife. Do I not have one up here? No. Okay, everybody's in their station? Stations, heads up. Heads up. You want to get a hard hat on? That way we know you're a real soldier here. You've got a mask on the top of the head, and he has a new place to wear it on, his baseball cap. Okay, is everybody ready? 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 Look like you're all ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go. You got 20 minutes. Should be easy. That inside corner is your problem. Cut the rest of them, take your scrap, and work on that inside corner. Be careful with your caulking. Staples through the caulking. You got to have a black line under every staple. And we are caulking both to the bottom plate and to the plastic on the footing. Okay. Now you can actually write on the insulation with your black crayons for marking out measurements. And be careful with this stuff. You manipulate it too much, it'll fall apart in your hands, which doesn't help it to be good insulation. Make big marks, not little tiny marks. Get carried away. Sign your name. Yeah, you got a caulk there? Yeah, now make sure that you're got a good bead of caulking so you can put your staples right in the caulking. Which means your staple gun gets all gummed up and then you're in trouble, but that's life. That caulking actually will be acoustical sealant, and acoustical sealant never dries. So you get it on something, it's there forever, and it's hard to get off. Get it in your hair and you no longer have the taint, you have just black hair. That's okay, that's okay. See if these guys pass the test. You got something in the back there already or not? But I really want to reiterate, these corners are complicated to do, particularly since there's a nailing edge there and all this. But it is so important to fill that with insulation, because that becomes a condensation point. Condensation points become mold points, and then you have the beginning of mold in a house that didn't need it. Doesn't do anything wrong to the wall. It's the inside surface that gets wet. Now, if you're really tired of fighting with that Tyvek, you could staple it to the ceiling until you're ready to bring it down. One of these days, we're going to actually put microphones on everybody, and that way we can hear all this little stuff under their breath, like, oh, God, it's not in the right place. I actually did that once. I was shooting a TV show, and we had a master craftsman doing some really nice stuff, dovetail work, and I sort of commented to him, I'd really like to know what's going on in your head. So we put a microphone on and asked him to talk out loud, just everything that's going on in his head. And it was amazing. It was like, damn it, over to the left a little. Oh, squeeze that a little bit more. But outside it looked so beautiful. It was like a duck treading water. They don't look like they're moving at all. He looked like he was just so comical doing it in his head. He was going crazy. Yeah, you can cut on your plywood floors. That's not a problem. Just don't cut on the hotel rug. Now, before you give up, now you're on the rug and you need to do a little slicing cut across the bottom, yeah. So now you got to, instead of sawing up and down now for the last one, lay it down pretty flat. That's it. And just slide along. Did that get it? Yeah. Let me just go by. Yep. Okay, now don't forget you're on the rug there, so be careful not to go through. You're cutting. Oh, you're on the floor. Well, that's not too good an idea to cut on the floor, though. That's a parquet floor. We can cut that. Okay. It's old anyway. Sorry, lady. That was your kitchen and linoleum in the kitchen. They're getting closer. You see how it breaks apart sometimes? You got to be a little careful of that. Just nestle it in and then pull it back out to the front if it's pushed in too far. None of this, this should be all snug but not compressed. Yeah, be careful in your cut there because you're on the rug. We take points off if you cut through the Tyvek. Okay, so now you're working on the inside, are you? Yeah, put your hand back there and see what you're dealing with. There's a hole back there that's kind of complicated. Oh! Now you guys are on the rug too, so be careful how deep you cut. I promised the hotel we'd give them the room back the way we got it. There we go. Coming in. You see? I'm going to put a board under you guys. Actually, you could move around the other side and cut on your floor. Be even easier if you go inside your house and cut there. So can we send the inspectors to check your inside corners? Yep. Okay, now just before you get the vapor barrier put on, make sure one of our judges gets to see your inside corner. You're going to check the inside corners before they get the vapor barrier. You're on the corners. She's on the corners. Watch out. She's a hawk. How are you doing for cutting the Tyvek? You want to, well, what's it? If you turn it the other way, you can cut the whole length on the plywood. Well, even my pros are taking the whole 20 minutes. Don't forget to cock your sill plate on the bottom. On the bottom? Oh, or here too? I would do it here too, but I mean that would actually accomplish what we need. Yeah. Because you're going to be putting staples in the bottom. So you got it all the way around that corner? Something all the way back in the back side? Yeah, I see you got a whole piece back there. That's good. See if you can dress that, the compression. Yeah, see the little bit of compression that you have right in here? All that. See if you can just pull this out a little bit. See, just like that. It actually makes a difference. You know, you may think nothing, but if it's pushed back an inch, you've lost an inch of insulation. Geez, my team of 3 up here are just barely going to make it in time. Yes. Yeah, you feel how you got that? So yeah. I'd cut one piece that just fits back all the way into that corner. Okay, so we get one square piece. What do we have here? We have any scrap here? Yeah, just something. So let's say it's something like that. You have to measure the size. Let me just make a rough here. Something like that that would go in and fit all the way in like that. And then you can put another one coming out here, or even a couple of smaller ones. You know, you could do a small piece just in this front part. But it's, yeah, I'll just get this out of there. But that's the complicated part. And that's why we, I can't even get it out of there. There we go. Okay, so something, check the dimensions on that, because it's full depth, but no, it's not. It's from there to there, okay? And not very deep. So it is a complicated little corner, but I just can't emphasize enough that you miss that, and you're headed to condensation in the corner of the house. There are other ways to do that corner a little bit simpler. This one piece of wood that's in our way here is only there to hold the drywall. So you can get drywall clips, which are a little clip that goes on the edge of the drywall and nails to this piece over here. And so with the drywall clip, you eliminate that whole piece of wood, which means it's easier to insulate back there. Huh? Yeah. It'd be easier for the drywall guy just to slap it in there. Yeah, yeah, that's right. If he has the clips, yeah. But but I mean, you only need about 4 clips down the wall, and then you go in and they clip onto the drywall, and then you place it and screw it in. We do it a lot for ceilings. So that when you don't have nailing, instead of fighting to create nailing, just go across, nail it to the sidewall, bring your other one up, it holds it in place. So drywall clips can eliminate a whole piece of wood. That's cheaper than a piece of wood and a lot less trouble we actually get more insulation. There are 50 ways to skin a cat. We have 4.5 minutes left. How are we doing in those corners? We're moving along. The only problem with wearing masks, we don't know who's smiling and who's frowning. Okay. Oh, we're moving along enough that we're putting another level on my house. Okay. Everybody's in that corner. Isn't that a pain? But that's the way we build corners, and it makes for a lot of insulation work. You should be aware of that.
What about wiring in the wall? That's another trick for this, eh?
No, wiring should not go through pressure-treated walls, because you're not supposed to make holes in pressure-treated wood. So you need surface wiring or something if you're doing that. Or you come up here, bring your wires up here, and drop vertical down. Now we can be away from the pressure-treated wood. The top plate doesn't have to be pressure-treated wood. So if you're wiring across here and drop straight down, you're not making any holes in your pressure treated foundation. So that's wiring. Well, you don't want plumbing out there anyway, it's going to freeze. So wiring is the only thing you'd have there. So bring it across the ceiling and down. Because I can easily run wires through here to run and then drop where I want to drop it. But of course, you got to do that early in the game. And then it's even more complicated for the insulation. Now, the ideal is if that wire actually drops straight down, I do a slot halfway through the insulation, I simply go over it. And if you do want wiring, that wall has to be an airtight electrical box. Huh? Service cavity. No, I was just saying, run the wires here and down, and you don't want to run the wires that way. So you come there and down. Now you can go through here, and the top plate can be.
We have to do that. You use up a lot of wire. You got to go down and out, down and out.
Yeah,
down and out.
yeah,
But it's that's cool.
yeah. We've got what?
A stamp for the PDF.
Oh, okay.
The camera.
That's a good idea. Where are all my cameras? She's down on the ground. Oh, he's back there? You want to come up on the stage and get me a shot of this stamp on the wood. I want to show you the wood has a special stamp for pressure treated wood foundations. We can bring there we are. So it actually is plywood. You see the PWT, pressure treated wood, okay? You need that PWT stamp on anything that goes down in the ground. Okay, good, thank you. There's two kinds of pressure treated wood, by the way. There are pressure treated wood that are made for decks. That is to say, above ground wood. It's outdoors, it needs to be free of rot, but it's not sitting in the ground. And then there's pressure treated wood for ground contact, and that has a special stamp. So it's far different pressure treatment. So you don't want to mix up the two types. If you're ever dealing with brick, same thing, there's two types of bricks. Bricks that can be in contact with the soil and bricks that are out of the soil. You take a brick off a wall that was just a face brick, and you make a walkway out of it, a year later you have a red dust path. That happened to you, huh? Why did I get that red dust path? Okay, because you took veneer that was designed to resist rain, but not sit in water and go through freeze-thaw cycles. And it just turns to dust when you put it in contact with the ground. Elsewhere, Toronto in particular, you'll see whole foundations made out of brick, right directly against the soil, but it's not the same brick. Culture actually has an important thing in the old days with brick. We ran into a lot of historical buildings in southern Ontario, particularly down near the border. And we found a lot of really poorly made brick. And just across the border, 20 miles away in the United States, the brick was. And what was different, it turns out that one of the bricklayers were Dutch and the others were Italian, were the brick makers. And the Dutch made better bricks than the Italians did. And now it's all become scientific, but in the days that it was artisanal, they didn't have the same formulas, and the climates weren't the same. Oh, we're out of time. How are you doing there? We'll extend the time a little bit here. We're still going along. You want to give us another 5 minutes? You don't know how to do that. Okay, we'll count it down that way. I thought this was going to be too easy for you and we would had too much time, but you're all getting into the plastic, or just about. Don't forget your caulking to put the plastic into that black marker line, staple through the caulking, through the acoustical sealant. Yeah, use the board. Now you are on the rug. Okay, we're extending everybody time because you're all, those inside corners were a bug, weren't they? I should have brought some drywall clips to show you. Okay, let's get some plastic up. Huh? Oh, you don't have plastic?
They're trying to find
They're trying to find some plastic. Oh, he's cutting you plastic. Okay. You're on an ice road and waiting for the plastic. Yeah, do your caulking. Do your caulking before the plastic gets here. You don't. Yes, you do. The black marker is your caulking. Black marker is your caulking. I'm not going to give you acoustical caulking in here. Okay, plastic's going up there. Caulking's getting done there. They're coming up here. That's moving along. You want to do one of my two, do this little small joint here. Insulate that and put a little vapor barrier on it. Okay, just that one. And then that one, we can indicate they need to do it. But if you have one done, that'll show that. Now you don't really want to be doing all this work in the crawl space or the basement until you have some weather protection over your head. Unless you really know you can get it done before the rain comes. Sequencing is everything, and you play with sequencing. When you're in an unfinished building, you play with it according to the weather reports. Now, that's right. Be careful when you're cutting that out because we don't want to cut off or cut into that piece of plastic on the concrete. That needs to stay intact. We got about 20 seconds. We're getting really close. Is anybody finished? These guys are almost. They're finished over here. Okay. And we're almost down. We're going to let these ones finish. Okay. We're getting there. Keep going for just a minute here. You're getting so close, I hate to turn you off. Now be careful when you cut there on the bottom. You see, it took a seamstress to get this job right.
municipality to municipality, why does the building code keep changing from a variety of years? They'd say, okay, now we're gonna do it this way, when it was a certain way for 10 years.
There's two elements. He's asking about why does the building code keep changing from year to year. There's two elements that happen. One is that sometimes the building code doesn't change, the interpretation of the inspector changes. Okay? So inspector in one area will demand one thing, and inspector in another area will demand something else. So sometimes it's not that consistent there. It's just very interesting. The other thing is there's a continuous evolution of the building code. And it will be, the building code is developed on a national level, but that's not law. It's adopted on a provincial level. And you either keep what the national code suggests or you change it. Of course, BC, Ontario, and Quebec all change it. And so there's constant evolution and changes to the building code. And not always very consistent. It's an evolutionary thing. We got a pretty good building code, but it is a process. It's actually a consensus process that is very long. 5-year cycles of building codes. And it's very complex and very long, but it's how people say, I think this should be in the building code. They push for it, goes to committee, goes to other committees, goes back, and then some things get in, some things don't. Some things they put off till later for more research. But there is a continuous evolution. Okay, we're going to call it quits there. You almost, well, cut off that big mass of plastic down at the bottom. He's frantically cutting plastic. You haven't got it up yet, huh? Oh, you're done. Okay, good. Okay, the judges are going around checking this all out. And as you were going, they were judging that corner insulation. That was the hardest part. Now remember, we're going to take a break after this to lunch, right?
In a bit. I want you to make an announcement first.
You want to make an announcement right now?
No, after you're done.
After we're done. Okay. In fact, you might want to get a mic back because otherwise you got to come. Well, if you want to come and hug me to my mic, that's all right. Oh, she's running away. Okay. I thought that this was a good option, but not. Didn't manage to work it out. After this is a break, make sure you stop by, get your passports punched at the different booths. Remember, we have booths right in the back of this room. There's the big hall. And then remember, there's another hall across the hallway and off to the left just a little bit, a whole nother set of booths back there. They're hidden away. Go visit them. They need to see people. Be friendly to them. And then we'll be, when is the next, after lunch, what time do we come back? Has anybody got the agenda there in front of them? 1:15. The audiovisual people know this. Okay. 1:15, we'll be back after lunch as we're going along. Now remember, if you haven't signed up to be part of the challenge in the afternoon, you get a hold of Silvio, who's someplace in the back there, and get signed up for it. All of you who participated, you keep your hard hat, keep your gloves, keep your mask, keep your glasses. You get to keep all that. Judges seem to be, no, they're still running around. Okay. And we got prizes?
Yeah, they're right underneath here.
So yeah, when your judge comes up, just flick it on and they're good to go.
Ah, okay, good.
Some tool-related stuff this time.
Oh, okay. What is this? All pliers. Cool. Show that off. This is what the prize is for these guys. You want to shoot that? That's what you're going to win for this contest.
Only if you win.
Did you? Okay, there it is. There it is. Stay put. Stay put. Stay put. Stay put. He's on camera. Okay, there you go. Whole set of pliers. What do they got? Pliers and wrench set. Okay.
One last group, I think they're judging.
Yep. Do you want to say this now?
No, because everyone's going to run away when I say it.
Oh, okay. You know how to turn that on? You need? Okay. Whatever it is.
It's on the spot thing, so they're gonna send them to a different room to win a prize.
Ah. Oh, to the back room. Good shot. Good shot. So was that fun doing the corners, guys? Gal? Not much fun doing those corners, huh? I really like corner clips. Drywall corner clips. You should look that up on the web. Drywall corner clips. You are ready?
We're ready.
Can we have your mic?
Yeah, I got it on now.
Well, unless you want to cuddle me because I got a mic right here if you want to come up close.
So thank you everyone that participated. Everyone did such a great job. It's very hard to choose a winner always in every competition. But in this one, Gary and Matthew, Team 4 from North Caribou.
Gary and Matthew, come on up. Come on up here, guys. Let's get a shot. Let's get- You're going to get it? Let me get in the middle here. I feel so small in the middle here. You got it? Okay. Good. 145, right? Jessica, 145? 140, 115. 115. We're back after lunch.